everyone. Thank you all for attending. This is Tammy Williams, CEO of Creative Computing. I'm host for today's Lasso webinar on shopping cart, saving shopping carts in an array instead of in a database. It's one of a series of free Lasso webinars. Before I did, I have some brief housekeeping notes. For the best experience, I recommend that you participate in this webinar with at least a broadband connection. If you have any problems or require connection assistance at any time, please contact WebEx Technical Support. Information about this is in your registration email. Difficulty with the audio or visual visiting, it would help if you quit any other applications that you have running. Through WebSupport, I found out that if you're hearing an echo while wearing a headset, it might be a problem with your headset, and you call in over the phone and listen through your phone's receiver instead of your headset. Today's webinar is on using an array to hold shopping cart items in memory until checkout, instead of storing every shopping cart addition in your database immediately. You can then chat at any time throughout this presentation. I'll be answering questions at the end of the presentation, but please use the meeting controls chat in the lower right corner of your screen to send in a question at any time. Also, when this webinar ends, please don't close your browser window right away. You'll see a ended dialog. Click OK, and then you'll be taken to the survey page. I'm emailing the demo files to all attendees before the end of today. Question and answer period, I'll review this part again, but basically you'll be able to raise your hand by clicking the icon, the hand icon in the lower right corner of your screen, and unmute your speaker so you can verbally answer a question. For any issues with the sound at that time, we'll just use the chat, but I'm going to try it out and see if it works. And I'll review this again when we get to the question and answer period. You can change your view. You can use the window dimensions of the presentation on the screen by using the down arrow in the meeting controls in the lower right corner of your screen to change your view percentage that fills up your screen. So let's start it. We'll talk about arrays, and briefly review lots of syntax for arrays and maps, and then take a long look at some code. Array. An array is a data type capable of storing a series of values which are stored and retrieved by numeric index that are accessible under a single variable. It can be a data type holding values like a list or holding values like all the records in a database. A PHP indexed array. Carton of eggs, except the eggs are integers, strings, or other arrays. Item in an array has an index called a key, with a page number in a book that says exactly where that item is in the array. Maps and pair arrays. Maps and pair arrays are data types capable of storing a series of values which are stored and retrieved by name instead of by index number. They're accessible under a single variable. Pairs and maps are like PHP associative arrays. Each map or pair array is like a record in a database storing name-value pairs. Each field name is the key or name, and the value stored in the field is a value. Just like in a database where you cannot have two fields with the same field name, maps and pair arrays do not allow two keys to have the same name. Each element of a map pair array has a unique name. In simple ways, each element does not have to be unique. In fact, if you create a new element, map, or pair array with the same name as an existing element, it obeys the existing element. For example, if a map or pair array has a name-value pair where name or key is state and the value is Georgia, If you enter a new where the name or key is Florida, the state, sorry, value is Florida, that name state is replaced by state Florida. Session. Sessions allow variables to be created which are persistent from page to page within a website. When passing data from page to page using HTML forms or URLs, data is stored in an ordinary Lasso variable, and that variable can be automatically stored and retrieved by Lasso on each page a visitor loads. Array and maps can be stored in session variables. In a website with multiple forms, the data from each form can be stored in a session and only placed in the database once a final form is submitted. So you have a multiple part form that covers many pages, you could do, or like we're going to talk about today's example, a shopping cart can be in a session and only placed in an orders database on checkout. It has three characteristics: a name, a list of variables that should be stored, and an string create a lasso that identifies a particular site visitor. The problem was that you didn't want to fill your database with incomplete orders. The solution would be to shopping cart items in an array instead and only put the items into your database when a credit card was submitted for payment. You'll use the methods I'm going to show you today to save entries from a multi-page form in an array before writing to your database. Adding, updating, and deleting your shopping cart items from a variable holding an array that's stored in session. Please note that anything that removes the users tied to the session holding the array variable will cause them to lose their shopping cart. So let's see some code. We're going to allow shopping cart array, an alternate version, what you can't do, and how to get around it. Open the screens in Firefox so you can all see the code. Come here and we'll be right there. Okay. Let's do a little review of arrays for those of you who might not know much of arrays. An array of index values looks like this. This is the code for creating an array. There's shorthand syntax for saying create an array. These are the elements being put into the array. Also insert elements using the insert syntax. A variable, simple array. I've created it. I put A, B, and C into it, and now I'm inserting C, D, and E. And when I output it, this is what I see. The thing that's at the second position, the element at index 2, I have to get syntax, and it gives me the element that's at position 2 in my array. If another way to find out what's in an array is I can look for the value using IN syntax to find a value in my array. There I go. I see that, yes, my array had B in it that I was looking for. Note the difference between the get syntax and the find syntax. The get syntax just gives you the element. The find syntax always gives you an array with any elements that were found. That's arrays. Now, if you look at pairs, name and value pairs, very similar to maps. Let the screen refresh here for a sec. What you see is a pair array, a variable called pair array. I created it, and I'm inserting name and value pairs. Name is the thing on the left side of the equal sign. Value is the thing on the right side of the equal sign. So use the get syntax, but each element in a pair array is a pair. It's a combination of a name and value. So when I get syntax and I get what's at position 2, I get the pair that's position 2. I go use a find syntax to find an element in my array. Note for pair arrays, when you use the find syntax, it's finding the name. The name has to match. There is no name or key with 2 in it, so nothing's found. If I can find B, their pair, where the name, the thing on the left side of the equal sign, matches B. So again, find syntax always gives you an array, and it found the pair where the name matches B. You can iterate through all the elements in your pair array or your simple array. So use this iterate syntax going through pair array. Each of my pair array is there. I use the first and second syntax to get the things on either left side of the equal sign, the name or key, right side of the equal sign. So if I be through each element of my pair array and say spit out first, I get names, I say get, I get all of that. And I also use loop to do the thing. I get through each element, and each element get the first names or keys for each pair, each element in my pair. Pair arrays look very similar, but map, and you're inserting name and value pairs. Bring through each element in your map. Again, we'll give you a pair because it's a name value pair. You can get first to get the names, or get second values. An item from an array using index. Remember, simple array, everything is and set an index position 1, 2, 3, etc. So you can remove what element is at position 1. That's what the syntax looks like. And so array was the element at position 1. After I remove, this is what it would look like. From a map, you can use remove using name. Remember, map, it's a name value pair. So just like you can find using name from maps, you can remove using name in the name value pair. Name thing on the left side of the equal sign. Say remove the element where the name is A, and it removes that entire pair element from your map. Here's the end results. So let's look at some shopping carts. What the final output looks like first, and then we'll look at the code. Okay. So here. So text to add to my cart. I'm adding them individually. How to find water on Mars? I'm adding it to my cart. Add this to my cart. What I'm actually doing is not sticking the values into a database, but instead stick those values into an array. Creating an array called cart array. This array has a map of name value pairs. Remember how I said each record in a database is like a map of name value pairs where the field name is the name and the value is the value stored in the field? So think that way. Database record, each record is like a map of name value pairs. The entire database with multiple records is like an array. So each element in my array, it's an array of maps. So I just stuck in how to find on Mars. It's record 1 in my database or row in my array with this map of name value pairs. I'm in this array everything I want a user to be able to see in their cart. So I want them to be able to see the title of what they just added to their shopping cart, the price, the ID, the quantity. All these elements I want to display to the user, so I've stuck them all into my array. As additional items, it's more elements. My array gets more maps added. Adding more rows to my database, more records to my database. Let's look at the code. Sorry, I gotta hide this sec. My window a little bit bigger. So here we go. Session, because I want to keep my cart from page to page, right? If I had a real site, it says just this demo page, I'd be going from page to page, and I want to keep my cart in memory since there's no database behind it. So for all, I need to create a session. A session is called cart session. It expires in 15 minutes. It's using auto, which means use either cookies or links, depending on what they have turned on in their browser. I've added a variable called cart array to this session. My variable hasn't been created yet, but I'm putting it to this session. And I'm another one called cart ID. That's another variable I've added. My cart array variable, the very first time I come to this page, it doesn't exist, right? So I need to figure out, does it already exist? It doesn't already exist. I want to create it. And if it's not, if it does exist but not an array, I want to create it. It exists array and it has more than one element in it. I don't want to do anything. So only if it's non-existent do I need to create it so it's part of my session. Come around, first time I come to this page, no cart array exists, so a cart array variable, which is an empty array, is created. Every time I load this page, it already exists in my session, so it's not recreated, basically. For cart ID, when I first do this page, it doesn't exist, so create it, and I'm just putting a random number in there as a unique ID. Every other time I load this page, it already exists as part of my session, so it won't get recreated. There are elements stems down in my products add to cart that when I click on a button saying add something to cart, I pass those form params, those action params into variables. That's what this code is doing. Clicked the end session link, it would still end session in the button variable and say end this cart session basically and start the process all over again. Now, the adds, updates, and deletions. Let's look at the actual list of products to add. And I'll pause for your screen to refresh. Basically, this is more portable. Instead of having my page talk to a database to grab, from a database full of products, I simulated what would actually happen in an inline search by just creating an array called product array with values that would have been grabbed from a database search. So this is what the inline would look like in a normal situation. You'd search records from your products database. But for purposes of this demo, I just created this simple little product array. Use the product array and iterate through it to show the add product to your cart section of my page. In the real world, you'd use an insert search and go through records found from your database inline search. So showing here, I'm just in my form. I have hidden values for the product ID, the name, and the price. And I have a value of 1, and add to cart is my submit button. So if I go back to Firefox, that section at the bottom there, okay, code edit, is get this cart section at the bottom of my Firefox form, okay? And every time I click add to cart, it is having hidden values: button, ID, name, and price, okay? The button is add, and all the other stuff comes from my product array. It's all about the product. So let's go to the code. So when I say add, means to refresh. I'll give it a second here. When I add button down at the bottom, remember I put my action params into variables, so my button action param becomes a variable called button. And that is that if I'm doing an add action, insert into a map those hidden values, those hidden inputs from my form, D for the product they want to add, the name for the product they want to add, the quantity and price. Those are all inputs from my form. I click add. Each of them gets stored into a map with my cart ID, which at the top of the page, remember I said, for some here, it creates a random number and sticks it in a variable called cart ID. For my cart, put these values in, insert map with these values. So my cart array, map, value pairs inserted into it when I click add. This happens every time I click add. A new map of name value pairs gets inserted into my existing cart array. Array, all cart ID in it, and this map of name value pairs. Now, if I want to update one values, right? Back to Firefox sec. So I want to make this 10. This first item, my cart. How to find water on Mars. I want to make it the quantity being 1, make the quantity 10. Actually, Let's make the quantity 99. Okay? Update. Right? A cut happened. You get that it still got information about that item. It's a math here to get the extended price, and it updated the quantity to 99. If you look at my cart array, you see this element here. You can figure out what happened. It's okay, find that element in the array, find quantity, and update the value for quantity. So if you look at BB code, here's update, right? So when I said update, it said, here's a little shortcut I'm using. I say basically, this different syntax. It's saying basically for array, get the index of the item I passed. I'll show you code. The update code basically says I'm at index position 1. So it says get index position 1 in cart array. Get the element that's at next position 1 at cart array. And the map. That's a map of name value pairs at row 1 in my cart. This reference here, so basically put that map to index position 1 in variable called row map. And then it says insert into that row map this quantity. Okay? And remember, because it's a map, a name value pair where the name is the same as the existing name value pair in that map, it just replaces it. So basically what happens is it says find what position 1. And for that map that's in position in my array, quantity equals 99, where before there was quantity equals 1. And because it's a map, all of a sudden quantity 9 equals 99 replaces quantity equals 1. If I remove, it's going to remove index. Basic remove syntax, say remove at the index position I passed, just remove it out of my cart array. And it's an array of maps. So each map is at a particular index position. Let's look at the shopping cart. The cart right here that we see Firefox. Okay. See, when I do move, I'm basically saying if I move index equals loop count is equal to the index position of this item in my array. When I say update, I say button equals update and equals loop count, meaning update the item at this particular index position in my array. And that's basically how it works. But in quantity, I can say update that index position and use the action param for quantity to update the quantity. So then Firefox again. I remove had a photo on Mars, and it's gone. And we update succumb to extreme radiation. And your screen to refresh, and it's updated. Math change, and that's just some extra things I mean here. I'll let you look at on your own. Maybe using some math syntax, some math tags from Lasso to do the math. Okay? But getting short, so I want to show you some other examples of how you could do this. Okay? I'm going to an alternative. So this is a very simple cart, right? I'm going to remove all these elements. And the screen hasn't quite refreshed yet, so I'm going to pause for a sec here. Okay, so I'm removing the elements from my card. The original card, very simple, very straightforward. And so the card look like this. I have a way of doing this. Again, I'm using a product array instead of hitting a database. But an alternative way is instead of add each item individually, you can add to cart at the bottom and say from here different quantities. You want to do this in a real store, but you might have another example of an instance where you need something like this. I'm adding my items to the cart. So what I just did is I say, okay, we iterate through all those items and just add each of them to this cart. Now, same of wanting to, instead of updating individually on each row, maybe I want to be able to just have one update button at the bottom of this form that lets you update everything in your cart, right? So this is how you would do that. It works the exact same way in terms of an array of maps that changed, having the pairs into my map for each row of my array hasn't changed. Just code for updating the quantity. So update the quantity. It go through each map in my array. And that map, find the quantity, and so look at the code. I have my session. I have my card array variable and my card ID. Now, we want to update items in the array. I loop through all the items that I want to update. And for each loop count, basically, I do my insert, where I insert the quantity equals same param quantity. Statement here is how looping through and updating the quantity for each item in my cart. The cart might make a little bit more sense. Looking at the cart, you can see this is put right here. It has one update button at the bottom of the page. 4 as in my cart. Update, it's going to pass 4 values for quantity. At loop count 1, update quantity at count 1, then at loop count 2, at 3, and at 4. And that happens in the section here. You submit or update on this form, it's saying update amount, a quantity amount, sorry, a quantity value for each element in my cart. This says loop through all those cart elements, figure out what quantity was passed through the form, and update map in that cart. Removing the same and moving the element at a particular index in, or removing the entire map at a particular index. Think that you might need to do this, okay? This is pretty similar on the on the products to add to cart side, but a little different on the updating and removing items from your cart side. So just like you might want one button to say update your quantities, you might say, I just want to use one update button to either update a quantity or remove from my cart. You some examples like this out there. Example of how not to do it. Okay, I'm going to show you what's wrong, what will happen first, and then I'll show you why. So, pretend that this is my form, I'm in my cart, and I want to just hit one button to say, we'll update some values and remove 2 elements. Really, I want to remove how to find water on Mars, and I want to remove surviving in extreme radiation. Before I hit the update, I just want you to think it through. An array of maps, right? Each that we're seeing here is at an index position in my array. So this is position 1. How not finding water is at position 2. Succumbing to extreme radiation is at position 3. And arriving in extreme radiation is index position 4 in my array. About it. If say loop through the elements and do the actions as needed. It's going to update and then delete. First element is going to say, okay, update to 10 and remove this first element. Then that happens. After not finding water is now at index position 1. Since extreme radiation is at index position 2, and surviving in extreme radiation is now going to be at index position 3. So there'll be nothing at index position 4 to be removed and allows an error. So let me show you what happens. That's exactly what happened. As elements 1 and 4, elements to be deleted. When 1 got deleted, there was more element 4. All of a sudden, my array went from being a 4-element array to being a 3-element array. It doesn't work that. Does not work. That's bad. I'll show you what the code looks like for that, and I'll show you the solution. So this that causes an error, right? Basically saying the elements in my cart and the elements at different index positions. Not work because, like I said, the thing at index position 1, the thing is no longer at index position 2. That's now bumped up to index position 1. There is a way to do this so it works. A little fast, but I'm going to leave time for questions at the end. So do this so that it works. This is a fixed version, right? So the same, but they work. I'm going to update, and I'm going to remove. Okay. Let me screen refresh. Again, I'm saying remove how to find water on Mars and remove surviving in extreme radiation. When I'm done, I want how to give up after not finding water to exist and succumbing to extreme radiation to exist. So here we go. That worked. Now here's a clue as to why it worked. If you look at this version, you see that heart array here actually an array of maps, not just a simple array of maps, instead a pair array. So element isn't just an array element holding a map. Each element is a pair array. Name, just for ease of use, the name is equivalent to the ID for this product. And the map has elements showing up in my card. If version 3, the bad version, is all the other versions I showed you, where each element in my array is just a map. Right? It's got 4 elements in it. At positions 1, 2, 3, and 4. But each element at that index position is the map. So you find it is using in this position. If you want to use this one button and use checkboxes to do deletes. If you want to do something like this, where you use checkboxes to delete and one update button at the bottom of your form, what you said is array, but each element in my array is not just a map, it's a pair with a name and a value. The value for each pair is the map. Okay? And that works. That way, I check boxes. Get that again. So when I delete, and I say it's going to delete. My point by saying that is the delete key is the names of the events that I want to delete. Not the exposition, but the name. So if I get the I'm using syntax that lets me find the position use the name. Okay? And the name is stored in this delete me key value. So if I look at the card, right, is grabbing the name value pair, that element in my array. Thing, I went through it a little quickly, but the thing to keep in mind here is there are ways to access elements. Sometimes you want a simple array, sometimes you want a map, sometimes you want a pair array, and these examples will help you figure out, how to access those different kinds of arrays. Figure out when best to use the different kinds as well. Let's go back. Thinking it's row is basically, if my card array, I'm looping through each element, mine to each pair. Each element is a pair. Now I say this element, what I'm saying is, for each pair, get the value, meaning get the map. ID for that map is the name of the pair. That's just how I worked it out. So there, name, value, find ID in value. ID 15, which is the same thing as what the name is. Okay. I'm going through my code. I use ID key. I delete checkbox. ID is the name. So when I use my delete box, looping through, what I'm saying is find the position of this name, and this find position is just like you end up with an array. So just get one. So it won't just give me, the index position. Like if this is a 1, it won't just give me value 1. Find position will give me a result that says array with one element, which is 1. Get 1 says, okay, grab from this array that's the result position the value stored in the array. So that's what the syntax has to look like. So that's basically a demo for today. Just to review, what we've gone through is we've said you might want to use a shopping cart. Then click your stuff in database right away. You put it in an array. You've gone through a very simple shopping cart where you add items one at a time, and you update and delete items one at a time. An alternate version of a shopping cart where you can add items multiple simultaneously and update them simultaneously, but remove them one at a time. We do an alternate version of this where you can add items simultaneously and remove them using checkboxes. I talked about how a method that would not work and would cause a problem, and a method that would work using an array of pairs instead of just a simple array of just maps. Just as an FYI, finally got around to saving your shopping cart items in a database. It would basically look something like this, right? You'd have a button that says, hey, I want to save my shopping cart items in my array, and iterate through your array. Each row element in your array, basically. For each row, you've got name value pairs. So for quantity in your database, quantity field in your database, you say, hey, from row map, find the quantity, find the price, find the product ID, whatever. And that's your add inline would look like. Okay, so I'm about to open up to questions. And does anyone have any questions? You can raise your hand. Let me go through and show you how you'd raise your hand again. Let me go through my PowerPoint so you can see. You need to raise your hand, and then I'll just unmute you so that everyone hears the question and I can answer it. So raise your hand, like I said. There's a hand icon at bottom participants on your meeting controls. Click it. Basically, that's raising your hand, and I'll unmute you and you can speak. So, are there any questions? Or you can use chat to type your question in. I have one question from Sailbach, I believe it is. I think that might be a nickname. Solution. Could you use a map to define each row, or did it have to be a pair, and why? No, you could have used just a map. A page seems simpler to me because I could say the name of the map plus a map of values. I'm thinking through just as a map being my record in a database and giving each map a unique name made it pair to me. In fact, could have used a map, but I can't think off the top of my head why I would have used a map. I think it would have made it more complicated to use a map. Question from Michael Maloney. Do you think that this method is more processor intensive or less processor intensive than using the database? It depends on your database. I'm concerned about processor intensive, whether or not it was processor intensive. My thing was, maybe want to have complete orders floating around in your database. You only want to save items in your database at the end. You don't save them as people are adding things to their cart and deleting things from their cart. You just want to save cart items right being processed by the credit card processor. So that's logic. I would think maybe for FileMaker it might be slower, but maybe not for MySQL. Then, asking to try and see what the difference between map and pair are. Okay, pairs are very similar. They're names and values, right? One difference with maps is that you can use ag keys, so arrow keys to get all the names, elements in a map, and use the tag values to get all the values in a map. You can't with a pair. But they're pretty similar. Defining them, when you define a map, you say map. For a pair, you say pair, or you say array. But beyond that, they're pretty similar. If anyone else has another difference between maps and pairs, it'd be great to let me know. The thing between maps and regular arrays is that arrays are in the value you put the element. So when you create an array, after inserting elements, if I insert into an array A, then B, then C, that's how those values are stored in the array. Okay, A, then B, then C. If I have a map or a pair array, I'm not sure if it's true for pair arrays. I think so. If I have a map, insert 1, B equals 2, C equals 3 in my map, that's not necessarily how it's stored in my map. My map could be equals 2, C equals 3, equals 1, even though that's not the order I inserted them into. In a pair array, actually, a pair works more like a regular array. The items are in the order I inserted them in, but that's not true. The question I see here is it easy to sort an array or a map? The Lasso tags for sorting arrays, sort map. I don't know, actually. I know the answer to that. I look in the Lasso reference and see. I don't think there's just a sort tag to sort maps. Another question saying, not related, but in the beginning, why did you set a local var to use with the instead of a regular var? Reason. My understanding from Lasso is that they've actually suggested that you use local vars for everything that's page specific. So I could use local vars everywhere on that page or regular vars everywhere on that page. It won't really make a difference. You can use local vars to update your var for sessions. So to put something new into my session var, I'd use the var syntax. Everywhere else, I could have just used the local syntax. It's just stylistic. For me, whenever I'm doing iterations or loops, I tend to pass things into local vars, meaning local to just that iterate or just that loop, instead of being a regular var. Okay, someone's put into the chat that from the Lasso reference, only string, integer, or decimal values should be sorted. Array contains arrays or maps, then the results of sorting the array are undetermined. Pairs will be sorted by their first element, which would be a string, integer, or decimal value, which makes sense because it's getting the names, right? So that makes sense. So if an array of maps, that's not going to be something you can sort. An array of individual elements that are strings, integers, or decimal values, that can be sorted. And if you have a pair where the left-hand side, the name value part of the pair is a string, integer, or decimal, that is what's sorted. So, other questions? Anything else you'd like me to go over? From so then, what would be a reason to use pairs for the rows in the cart? Because they should up in the same order? Yes. That, I believe, is why it went with pairs. It's easier, and it made me go with my analogy of this cart array being the equivalent of records in my database. My database are always in a particular order. Record 1, record 2, record 3. I want items in my cart array to be in a similar kind of order. So that's why I use pairs. It's just a map for that final example. Any other questions? It looks like we're done. I don't see more questions coming through. And I'm going to email you all the demo files from today. And I thank everyone for attending. Thank you. Don't forget, please fill out the survey at the end. When you log out, you'll see a message saying being ended, and then you'll be taken to a page to click on a link to go into the survey. Thank you. Goodbye.